and welcome to my channel. Now today's video is about these Norwegian made Solovox TK50 speakers. Come out late 60s, I would have thought, early 70s, somewhere around there. Now let's just talk about Solovox first of all, just get that out of the way. Not done a great deal of research, just done a little bit really, and this is a Norwegian company, but they changed their name. They took out the R, Solovox in the end, without the R, and started selling speakers in places here in the UK like Comet. Now I dare say they sold them elsewhere as well, but as far as I can tell it's like a Comet kind of own brand at the time. And for what I can see, they used to do kind of clone speakers. They used to clone like Wharfedales, Goodmans, speakers like that. They used to kind of clone, even cloned a pair of Amstrad speakers as well, I think, kind of like Amstrad Goodmans, Dynaco as well. They kind of bring out their speakers, and Solovox come along and kind of cloned it a little bit, obviously made it a bit cheaper, and brought out that kind of like looking kind of speaker, very, very close to it kind of thing. That's what's happened here, I think. If you look at the, I haven't got a picture actually, but if you look at the Dynaco A45s, these are fairly similar, except with the 45s, this tweet was kind of raised, pushed over into one court, up to one side here in the middle, and these two drivers are brought in a little bit. And rather than these dampeners are apparently called let's get this right, a periodic dampers enclosures. So basically they're just fibre wadding behind a grill each side, kind of acting as a damp port kind of thing, a damped port. With the A45s and Dynaco speakers, they kind of use a long strip, a long one, rather than here they've gone for two round ones. And just going back to, you know, I'm not going to compare these with the 45s because I haven't got the 45s. I'm not going to kind of pair them with the 35s because I've got them. But just for a matter of interest, these are quite big. You may not look it on camera. These are 24 3/4 eye, with a width 14 and 1/4 and 12 3/8 in depth, in inches this is. Where the 45s are just a little bit smaller. The actual Dynacos, maybe these were trying to copy in a way, were a couple of inches. I was going to say they're 2 1/4 inches less in height. In width, they're 1 1/4 inch less in width, and in depth, what's that? They're about an inch less in depth. But that Dynaco 45s, they kind of just move these drivers a bit near each other, push this tweeter to one side here, and add the kind of acoustic grill covering kind of thing in a couple of places as well. I kind of compacted them in a little bit more. But looking online, looking and comparing my 35s, 25s and other stuff, looking online and everything, and looking inside here, which we will do in a minute, we're going to probably come up with a few differences here. They've used the same drivers as Dynaco use here, these drivers here. We're going to look at them in a minute, and this. But they've kind of like cut back a little bit on the insides of it. Though the cabinet's fairly thick. We're going to talk all about that as we go along. So let's get them on the bench. And there they are on the bench. And there's both drivers there. These drivers are Sears 15 ohm, and as you can see they're 21 TV EW speakers by Sears. If we look at the tweeter, this is a 1.5 inch dome tweeter, again made by Sears, and this is the H087 tweeter. Now when they're all out of the way, we look at the foam inside. This is where I think this differs a little bit, but it does differ from the 25s and 35s I've got. And from what I can see, the 50s, which are a bigger kind of version of this, again with 10 inch drivers. Oh, by the way, sorry, I better tell you the size of these drivers. These two main drivers here, they're both 8 inch drivers. These two drivers here are 8 inch. Well, the Dynaco A45's got 8 inch drivers, but they did bring out an A50, which is a bigger, much bigger cabinet, and they changed these into the 10 inch drivers, the same drivers they use in the A25s and 35s. So let's go back to that foam. There you can see the foam inside the case, kind of just chucked in kind of thing, and it doesn't really cover the sides completely. They're probably about half covered, as you can see there. Well, if you compare this, I've got a picture of my previous video a while back now of the A35. You can kind of see that this fiberglass foam is all cut nice and neatly, packed against the sides. It's all a bit more precise, kind of giving a different enclosure, kind of like looking at it kind of thing. So yeah, I think if some time was taken with doing the enclosure here, we're going to get a better sound. And plus them A35s, and I think the A45s have kind of got a split going down. I mean the 25s have got a split, but what I can make out of some of these have kind of got splits inside at certain places, some bracing and a split, kind of to convert them into two kind of chambers really. Well, this hasn't. So that's another thing to bear in mind when I kind of come to the sound description of this, and something you may be able to improve upon, maybe able to try and get an enclosure in there, but I'm sure you could, well I can anyway, get some extra fiberglass, some thick fiberglass, 2 inches I think it is, and actually put it around the sides and trying to do it as they do in the A35s. Anyway, I'm going ahead of myself here a little bit. So if we look at the crossover, this is nicely put in the crossover. It's kind of clamped down, it's got a screw in it, it's also clamped down. It's not going to move anywhere, this crossover. Once we take the crossover out, it's got 2 resistors, 1 cap, 1 inductor, and that cap is a 16 microfarad Jensen cap there. And I've done a little crossover diagram for what I could make of it. This is what the crossover diagram actually looks like. Now, going back to this baffle, let's just show you a picture of this baffle on the screen there now. And this is quite thick. This is 22mm baffle, this. Yet these sides, even though this has kind of been cut out here, if you actually take the actual side depth, that is, I've got it written down here, that is 17mm thick. You may not look at it here, but I'm talking about the complete side, the actual cabinet, the old box. This has been cut out. This has been routed out. But yes, that's 17mm there, but the actual baffle's an extra 5, it's 22, because some of these are sunken in, as you can see. Yeah, so if we flick it round, just look at the back there, we've got 2 screw connections there at the back. And I've also got a picture of this, a close-up picture of these, and what have I called these? These are called damped ports, periodic enclosures. It's kind of got fibre wadding in between this grill and another grill the other side. And these are basically, when you feed them, near enough the same thickness as the actual baffle, so about 22mm in thickness. So that's that. Right, and how did these actually sound? Well, I set them up as normal, put them on stands actually. They're quite big speakers, but I still stuck them on my stands. I think they're about 22-inch high, them stands I use here, and the ones downstairs, they're maybe an inch bigger actually downstairs. But the first thing, they're quite a large speaker, and in this small room where I do some of my listening and testing, it's a bit too small. You start putting large speakers in small rooms, and it's got a little bit of echo in it as well. It kind of ruins everything. It's only a tad echo. I kind of dampened quite down recently, but yeah, it can interfere. They're a bit too much in your face maybe. So I've kind of gone downstairs and had a good listen to them down there. Compared them with the A35s as well downstairs. Gone through a few different amplifiers as well, as I normally do. Obviously a few different genres of music and all that kind of stuff. And overall, I didn't think they were too bad. I thought, you know, I paid £80, as I said, and I did look on an auction site, one of these kind of local auctions to you, not eBay, nothing to do with that, and the last pair on there sold for £10. So obviously I paid a little bit more than that from, so that geezer got a reasonably good bargain, I would have thought, for £10. I don't think I've done too bad for £80. I'm going to come to a few bits and pieces I probably can do with them to make them sound a little bit better. But anyway, let's get on to the sound. I'm getting ahead of myself again. Yeah, these have got more bass than the A35s, as you would come to expect. We've got 2 drivers here, rather than just one 10-inch driver. We've got 2 8-inch drivers. They're a bigger enclosed cabinet. They're going to give that extra bass, which they do. You know, as soon as you turn it on, you can tell that it's got the extra bass. And the bass sounded, you know, pretty good, the bass. The only thing that I would say is that it didn't have the freedom, so much freedom. It's got a more bigger, it goes down deeper, the bass, but it didn't have the freedom as them A35s have. That bass seems to be in that enclosure, and it can do what it wants, kind of thing, you know, to a certain extent. It just don't get carried away here, but it's got a lot of freedom there. You know what I mean? When you hit the snare, it sounds like a snare and all that kind of stuff. We're here, it's a bit less so. It hasn't got that space around it, hasn't got that freedom so much. So it's a little bit more, it seems a bit more, I don't know, I wouldn't say, it sounds a little bit more enclosed in, I would have said. Yeah, it does sound, even though it's a bigger cabinet, it does sound a little bit more enclosed in, that bass. And it, like I say, hasn't got the freedom, it hasn't got the space, especially when you start hitting the snare and stuff like that, and you're going around the kit with a drum, going around the drums and that, and the tom-toms and that. It's kind of just, it just hasn't got that kind of, how can you put it, like I say, it just hasn't really got that space. It just sounds a bit more tighter, a bit more clamped in kind of thing, where I do prefer it. It sounds more realistic, more natural with the A35 than it does here, but it still gives, you know, a reasonable account of itself. Let's don't get me wrong, it's still a nice sounding speaker. It's got kind of like a warm sound to it in the bottom end there, because it does kind of think, oh, this is quite nice, this is cosy kind of thing. I'm liking this bottom end kind of thing, but it's just missing that bit of space. Now, when we go to the vocals and that, they sound fine. I would say that this speaker is a little bit on the bright side. When we come to moving up the mid-range to the top end kind of thing, even though it's just got this one tweeter, the other one's just got that one tweeter, I think it's just a bit on the bright side. Now, on the back of mine, I haven't got it on these, but on the back of most Dynacos, you've got a little switch, like they usually put a 2-ohm resistor, and it's usually 5 settings, so you can kind of increase and decrease. Now, on the A35s, I keep it dead in the middle. In the centre position, it sounds nice. As soon as I move it up maybe to the top end, they start sounding a little bit too bright, a bit too much is going to the tweeter. and it doesn't sound as good there as it does with the middle. Now this sounds here, this is on full. If I was to compare it, it's probably near enough, or maybe just a bit more on the fuller setting, that if I turn my A35s up to the full setting. So this is a little bit bright. Now I know you can put a resistor or something in there to kind of tone it down. I haven't done that, I'm just giving the review as they are. So this is a little bit on the bright side, and depending what amplifiers you use, I'll come to them in a minute as well. Some amplifiers are obviously a little bit brighter than others and all that kind of stuff. You want an amplifier that's not too bright, because if it's a little bit on the bright side, it kind of goes a little bit over the top, just a little smidgen, not too far, but just a little bit over the top. So that is that. It's a little bit bright. Now another thing I've noticed is that I've used this with a few different amplifiers, but just compared to, I'm going to compare my Sansui 101, which is kind of like a valvey sounding amplifier. It's got lots of space, it sounds nice, it's got that shimmering kind of going on, all the twinkle kind of stuff, the 3 dimension to it and all that, and the space around the instruments is nice and everything. It didn't really convey, it didn't really sound great. It sounded okay, but it didn't sound great on these, you know what I mean? It was okay, it weren't too bad. I just think, even though this is a speaker that came out probably in the 70s, near enough of that amplifier did come out, I think these are going to pretty much match up quite nicely, but for some reason they don't quite gel. Now when I've tried it with a few other amplifiers and start moving up with amplifiers, they ain't got so much space, and they ain't got that like valvey sound, they ain't got that that kind of stuff going on. When I, so for instance, the Sansui 317 I got, which is the Mark II version, just in case anyone was wondering, this sounded a lot better. Like I say, that amplifier ain't a valvey sound, and ain't got that kind of magical space and that 3D and all that kind of thing going on, all that 3D kind of dimensional space to it. These worked a lot better. So these don't convey that space as well as, say, the Dynaco A35s do, and then Dynaco A35s with that Sansui sound great, that Sansui 101 sound fantastic, they sound great. Don't get carried away for what I paid for them and what they are, they sound really nice, I'm happy with them. As well as they do with pretty much any amplifier, with all the amplifiers I've got. I wouldn't have kept any of them if they didn't. And with the Sansui 317, they sound great as well. But like I say, that Sansui 317 ain't quite the same sound-wise as that 101. And to get that 101 sound, and like I say, that freedom, that kind of like when you're hitting the snare drum and all that, you've got the space around it, it sounds nice, it sounds really realistic. Doesn't quite convey with these speakers. They don't quite match up as well as they do. As them A35s do with that 101, but when I started changing the amplifiers, that did change. They didn't sound too bad. Like I say, they're a little bit on the bright side, but vocals are okay. They sound pretty good. Instruments sound pretty good. It's got a nice level of attack and all that kind of stuff. Got some good dynamics to it there. But what kind of ruins it a little bit is that brightness on that top end. It's just a bit too much. But like I said, I can probably put a resistor in. I haven't done anything to it, because what I think I will do is I'm going to take my time with these. It's going to take me a while. I'm not going to rush them. But if you just go and buy these as is, as they are now, they're okay, you know what I mean, depending what amplifier maybe you put with it. I won't go for an amplifier that's got a lot of space, because you're not going to convey that with these. If you're just going for a run-of-the-mill amplifier kind of thing, these are going to sound quite nice. You're going to be pretty pleased with these, I think. If you pay up to 100 quid for them or something like that, you're going to sound, they sound all right. They've got a bigger sound as well. Also, it's got a bigger sound than A35s, but they're a bigger speaker, a bigger enclosure. You would expect that anyway. And like I say, you need a bigger room with these. This size room, I do a few of my tests, listening tests too, and everything is far too small for these speakers. You need to get these in a bigger room. They sounded much better. They did downstairs, and you're further back from them as well. They sounded better. But so what I'm going to do with these, I'll probably use these downstairs when I get them kind of getting to sound a little bit better. So the first thing I'm going to do, I think, in the meantime, it's going to be over a period of time, is change the crossover, change that cap. I measured the resistors, and they were bang on the resistors. I think that resistor was 3.9, it measured 3.9, and the other resistor was 10 ohms, and that measured bang on 10 ohms. So them two resistors are okay. And I did measure a cap as well. I forgot to mention that 16 microfarad is the marking on the cap, and it actually measured 21 microfarad. So most caps, is a bit too high really. Maybe 18 would have been okay, something like that. So it's just a little bit out. So I'm going to change it anyway. I'll change that cap. And what I'm going to do is get that fiberglass and kind of put it in as they are. I'm going to get the Dynaco 35s out, see exactly how they did it, but that has got that split chamber, like I say, it's got a split chamber between the two speakers, the tweeter and the main driver. I'm not too sure if I'm going to get anything in here to split the chambers and where I would split it anyway. But first of all, I think I'm going to get that nice, like I say, that fiberglass, maybe 2-inch wadding as they got in them A35s. Rearrange it here because, like I say, the actual foam or whatever, they actually use fiberglass. It ain't foam. They use fiberglass in here because my hands was itching afterwards. Yeah, the actual fiberglass they use in here, it's kind of just chucked in. It wasn't really arranged. And when I opened up the other speaker, it was, you know, it was different kind of. Obviously, it's been moved about and it's just bombs up and down all over the place. It hasn't been put in as nicely as an A35. No matter what you do, shake it about and everything, that's going to stay exactly where it is, kind of thing. And then where here it's going to move up and down, sag a bit, and all that kind of stuff. So I think I've got to get it kind of get these into squares, kind of thing, or whatever, maybe 2 squares or something, or maybe cut here, cut there, or something. I'll have a little bit of a muck around with the dampening inside that fiberglass dampening. Do the crossover and maybe get myself a couple of resistors as well, and kind of see if I can just maybe tone this down and get it so it's a bit more balanced. And once it gets a bit more balanced, and at least get a bit more freedom, as it does with them A35s. This is going to sound pretty good. This is going to sound pretty good if I can do that. It's going to sound pretty good. And I don't see any reason why, because this Solovox, they use the same drivers as the A45s, and I've been looking online and they get, you know, people seem to like them quite a bit, and I should imagine they do, because they're probably, you know, a bit better than the A35s, I'm guessing, really, to be honest with you. But then they probably are a step up in the range kind of thing, so they probably sound a little bit better. If I can get these sorted out, I think I'm going to get myself, you know, it's going to be a reasonably sounding set of speakers. It's not going to cost me a lot to muck about. I may even have a little rotary switches the same as they have on the A35s on the back, just so I can flick through a few resistors when it's all closed up and everything. Maybe just have a rotary 5 resistors as they do in there. And if that fails, I may just maybe use a bit more of a simpler design, or maybe look at the design for the A45s, the crossover they use for that, or even the A50s, because they're similar but just with 8-inch drivers. So I've got a few kind of directions to go in, a little bit of mucking about, maybe a little bit of tinkering around. Not that I know anything about crossovers or anything like that, but also I may just keep it to the very simple design that they've got in the A35s, which is just a few resistors on a rotary switch and just 1 capacitor. So there's a few different ways I can go with the kind of crossover, and hopefully I'm going to get some sound out of these, and they're going to be great downstairs, I think, especially if I get myself a little pair of stands not too far off the floor, and maybe have them just pointed at an angle a little bit towards me or something like that. You know, I think they're going to sound all right. They're going to be great for movies and all that kind of stuff downstairs, and they're in pretty good condition as well, which is great. Don't really need a lot of work with the cabinets. The grill's a little bit dirty, but I'm sure I'll be able to put a cloth over them and make them look a bit better than what they are. So all in all, I'm fairly pleased. Like I say, I paid £80. You know, if you do looking for it, they're pretty. They don't come up all that often, but if you see a set of these, yes, probably you don't want to go too much further than that, because you're going to have to put a bit more investment, a bit more time into sorting them out. But when you do, I think, you know, they're going to be fairly good. Fingers crossed, I'll be able to sort them out. And that's it, really. Just wanted to keep you up to date with what's happening, and this speaker here. Now, I'm probably not going to be, I keep saying this, I'm just going to put up some crappy old videos. You're probably not going to be interested in a few holiday snaps I've been on and all that kind of thing, just to put a few extra videos so I don't lose and all that kind of stuff on the channel. I'm not too sure when I'm going to be back, so it will be quite a while now, I would have thought, but I will get around to doing these at some stage. But that is pretty much it now for me. Alex did offer me, Alex Mitchell there, hi Alex, he has offered me a couple of extra units to do on the channel, but my art ain't in it anymore. I haven't really got the time. I'm trying to get rid of a few bits here. Oh, that's another thing I'm going to do. I'm going to kind of, I've said it before, I'm going to try and come down to 2 or 3 sets of speakers and 2 or 3 amplifiers, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I really am going to do that. So I'm going to let you know what I got rid of, what I kept, why I kept it, all that kind of stuff in a further video. But until then, it's going to be quite a while. So I'll say thank you again. I mean, I've said this a few times now and I'll suddenly come back with something else, but thank you all again for listening to my channel and everything else. It's been 4 long years. In fact, I was thinking about what have I learned in the last 4 years, so I may come back with a little video there as well. What have I learned in the last 4 years? I have learned quite a bit, really. What have I learned, like doing this channel and going around listening to stuff and all that kind of stuff, and buying stuff and all that kind of stuff. So I may do one of them kind of videos or something you may be interested in listening to, I don't know. But until then, I'm going to have a little bit of fun with these, and them A35s have been on all the time. Every time I take them out, I've got to put them back in as soon as possible, because I just love the sound of them, I must admit. And funny enough, no, that's it. There's nothing funny enough to say. Okay, that's it. Until the next video, I'll see you all soonish, and thanks for watching.